Um, Thank you, Melissa. Appreciate the intro. My name is Naushad. You can also call me Nosh if you'd like. And I'm really happy to be here today and share this core foundations and postural alignment workshop with you. I'll just give you a little brief background of where I came from, what I do now. I'm a holistic health coach. What I do is I help people with chronic pain and injury management. So that's one of my focuses. And I use a very holistic approach. So it's mind and body and spirit. I got into this whole world back through my experience with soccer when I was a teenager and in college. So I was an athlete for a lot of my life and had injuries to pretty much every single joint in my body. Had a lot of injuries to my spine and my low back, and put me on the path of being in rehab, seeing all sorts of doctors underneath the sun, had tons of surgeries on my body. And there was a point when I think I was about 21 years old where they were about to do surgery on my back, or they were potentially recommending surgery and offering me all these painkillers. And, at this point I'd been, playing pretty competitively and, taking Advil almost every day. And then I just threw the painkillers in the trash can because I said, you know what, there has to be a different way. There has to be a better way to heal my body. And I didn't want to experience all this pain. So, that's when I really started exploring different forms of therapy and training and corrective exercise, yoga, breath work, meditation. I started seeing all different sorts of holistic health practitioners, and eventually led me to becoming a holistic health practitioner myself. Just a show of hands or in the chat box, if any of you are currently dealing with back pain or have had back or neck pain in the past, feel free to shoot a message in the chat box. Yeah, raise your hand. Exactly. Yeah. So it's something that a lot of us go through, right? And it can be really, really challenging, especially when we're in the midst of the pain and we don't know what to do about it. So it's something that I really understand well. And, really my intention for today is to share some tips, tricks, practices, things that you can consider to implement in your life so you can feel better, stronger, okay, and live more freely. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here.
Do you want to start with the moment of grounding there, Naushad?
Yeah, we'll do a minute of grounding. Thanks for that reminder.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is actually going to be really helpful if you have a cushion or a seat or a chair or something to sit on, or you can sit on the floor if you want, but ideally you have your hips higher than your knees, and that will help us align our spine a little bit more easily. So we'll just take a minute to ground in before we get into any of the exercises today. So the reason we keep our hips higher than the knees if possible is that way we can tilt our pelvis slightly forward. And we're leaning forward. You can almost even lean forward in your chair, keeping the pelvis forward, and then bring the shoulders over the hips. If you need to stack your like a pillow or a cushion or anything underneath the hips, that will be helpful for today. And then go ahead and close the eyes. Put your hands on the belly, and we'll take a few deep breaths in through the nose all the way into the belly. And as you inhale, the belly expands. As you exhale, the belly comes back in towards the spine. Okay, you can almost even imagine a wave moving through your body. You can feel the hips on the chair or on the earth. So again, inhale, breath goes all the way down to the belly, expanding the diaphragm. Exhale is a complete letting go. It's also really beneficial to balancing the nervous system. Take another couple of deep breaths. you can ask yourself, what am I grateful for today? What am I grateful for in my body, what my body can do for me? And then gently opening the eyes, coming on back. All right. Hopefully that was nice and grounding for everyone. Now I'll go ahead and share my screen. So just to cover again, what I'd like to, what I'd like you all to get out of today is just some principles, some ideas on how you can reduce pain, move more freely in your body, improve confidence in your body, mind and body, right? It's that feeling of freedom of, okay, I can go do anything that I want to do, and I can go have fun, or I can go play, or I can play with my kids, whatever it is. So we will be covering some core stability exercises, postural alignment, and functional movement. So once we have our foundation, then how can we move in a way that's healthy and that works well for our body? And also mindful awareness. And I bring this up specifically because if we want to make a shift in our health and our well-being, we have to start with awareness. So everything starts with that. All the clients that I work with, we begin with awareness, right? So if you're trying to, let's say, solve a problem or make a change in your body, right? That problem has to be solved from a different level of awareness or a different level of consciousness, right? So if we can really start to listen to our body and what it's telling us, then we can actually start to make the changes that we need to, right? Especially like when we're going through pain, there's a tendency when you want to just like, okay, I want to just shove it underneath the rug and not deal with it, but it's always going to be there. So one thing I like to say is we listen to our body's whispers before they become screams. Okay, so if you can really listen, it's always whispering to us. Oh, maybe I need this, take care of my hip, or maybe I need to go for a walk today. Or maybe I need to actually change something in my diet, right? So always listen to the body. It's always speaking to you. So the first thing that I'd like to cover is the anatomy, and it's the actual core, the deep inner core. So our core is composed of a lot of different muscles. Some that we might not be aware of. And I want to talk today about the transverse abdominis. This is what stabilizes the entire trunk, the low back, the lumbar vertebrae, okay? And as you can see here, especially on the picture on the right-hand side, it has this wrapping, it really wraps around the whole spine. So it attaches to the vertebrae in the back, and then it comes across in the front of the belly, okay? So this is underneath the six-pack ab muscles. It's underneath the obliques. It's really deep in there. And when it contracts and engages, what it does is it cinches in towards the midline, like a waist belt. Okay, so then it stabilizes the spine so that when we're running, jumping, moving, bending down, that helps to keep it nice and solid, right? And not really loosen up anything in our low back, right? So that's what the function of the TVA is. And I'm going to use the term like connecting into your core. So when I say today, connect into your core, that's what it means. We're engaging the TVA. What you can actually do if you want is you can wrap your hands around your core like that and just cough a few times. Just see what that feels like. And for example, like in yoga, some of the teachers might say, pull your belly button into your spine. It's the same concept. And what we're going to do is we're going to practice breathing exercise to connect into the core. Okay, so what I recommend is get your hands around your belly core. So I have my thumbs in the back, right there, and then fingers in the front. Okay, and we can do this seated to start off with. And this is how the breathing is going to work. So the inhale through the nose is probably about 3-4 seconds. And then the exhale is going to be a full exhale through the mouth. And it might be 10 seconds, it might be less, it might be more than that. It just depends on your lung capacity. Okay. And as we exhale, we're going to push the air out through the mouth. We're going to imagine we're blowing up a balloon. So that's why I call this balloon breathing. So the lips are pursed, and imagine you're just pushing all the air out of your lungs. Okay. Once you get to the end of the exhale, you're going to start to feel the muscles contract in the core, and we want to feel that waist belt cinching in, the TVA cinching in. Okay, so we'll go ahead and begin. So just take a little short sip of air in through the nose. And now we start to blow out through the mouth. And you're going to push the air out and exhale and push it out and push it out and push it out until there's no air left. And hopefully you start to feel this shrink wrap happening here at the end of your exhale. So once you get to the end of the breath, just go ahead and do another round. We'll do 3-4 rounds, just depending on how short or long your breath is. So short inhale through the nose, exhale, blow up the balloon. And push the air out and push it out, push it out, push it out. Starting to connect into the core. Okay, so we're connecting into the core, feeling that engagement, strengthening of the inner core. Okay, maybe one more. And after you've finished the last breath, you can, feel free to go ahead and chat in the box there how that was for you. And throughout today, if there's any questions that come up as we're doing the exercises, feel free to shoot a question in the chat box. I'd be happy to answer it. Also have some time at the end for questions, but it might be helpful after you've just experienced something to maybe, if you want to just share about it, how that was for you. If you have a question, feel free to use the chat box. Okay. So the next thing I'd like to cover are some core stability exercises. So these are like the big three. There's hundreds of different exercises we can do to strengthen the core, but these three are really helpful because they're focused on not just strengthening the core or that TVA, but also some of the muscles around the core that are really helpful for supporting. So especially the glutes, other areas of the back, and the hips. Okay. So we have 3 exercises here. Bird dog, which is on the top, right? Okay. Dead bug, I know these names are kind of funny, which is on the bottom left, which will be on your back, and then side bridge, okay, or side plank. So what I'm going to do is invite everyone to find a mat or floor. We're gonna go through these exercises.
Can you stop sharing your screen, Naushad?
Yes. Okay. Hopefully everyone can still see me. So we're going to start hands and knees. Go this way. So the wrists are underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. Okay. One thing I want to say too is as we go through the exercises today, if there are challenges or pain that you feel, I want you to really listen to your body and modify as you need to. So that's really, really important. So don't force yourself to do anything. Remember, we said listen to the body. Okay. So from this hands and knees position, let's take one of the belly breaths that we just did. So breathe in through the nose. Exhale, blow into the balloon. feel the belly button coming up to the spine. So in this position, we're using gravity to give us a little bit of resistance. And then return to normal breath just a few times here, round the back and arch the back. So cat-cow. So exhaling, rounding, inhaling, opening up, looking up, arching the back, and then see if you can find a neutral position. So where the spine is relatively flat, there's just a slight arch in the low back. Okay. And keeping a normal breath, we're going to connect into the core. Okay. So just through using a normal breath, we don't need to do a big long breath, just connect into the core, feel that connection, belly button into the spine. We're going to kick the left leg back. And as you do it, see if you can stay stable through the hips. Try not to shift the weight. You can imagine the left heel is pushing into the wall, an imaginary wall behind you. Okay. Now, for some of you, this might just be it. And we work on just the leg, finding that sense of stability. Maybe we reach the right arm up. Your gaze is down at the floor. Okay. Third option, if you feel really comfortable, is to draw a very mini circle with the arm and the leg in opposite directions. Okay, so that adds a little bit more of a challenge. Again, you can do any of the three options that I showed for you. Slowly coming back down to the floor. Again, connecting into the core. This time we kick the right leg back. So right leg is kicking back. Again, imagine pushing into a wall behind you. So there's energy shooting from the back of the right heel. Maybe you reach the arm forwards. The back stays stable as we do this. Okay. And if we want to play around with a few mini circles here, you can do that. What's most important is the low back stays stable. How is your breath? Okay, and then coming back to center. Nicely done. Okay, we're gonna transition onto our back. This time for the dead bug. Okay, so knees up. Knees are over the hips, feet in the air. Head resting on the floor. Left hand is going to press into the right thigh. Okay, so the left arm is straight. And then the knee and the hand are pushing into each other. You're going to imagine there's a $100 bill between your thigh and your hand. So keep it strong. Okay. And then right arm reaches up, keeping the back stable. So low back is nice and stable. We inhale, reach the left leg forward and right arm back. Okay. So you control how far you reach. So as you reach the leg out, you'll start to feel your back and your core working. Okay, we're just gonna do about 3 reps. If you'd like, you can do more. And then hug your knees into the chest to give yourself a little break. And then we're going to come to the other side. So right hand pressing into the left thigh. And then right leg kicking forward, left arm reaching back. Okay, you control how low, how far your limbs extend. Making sure you're breathing. Okay, and you're connecting into the core. So the low back does not arch off the floor. You keep it nice and close to the floor. Okay. And then hug your knees into the chest. Maybe rocking here, side to side. We're gonna turn to our side, right side. We're gonna bend the knees, so we're gonna do the side plank now. Right elbow underneath the shoulder. Okay, left hand on top of the hips. First thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna press the right elbow down into the floor, making sure the right shoulder is away from the ear, okay? So if you put your hand underneath your right armpit there, you should feel an engagement of your lats, okay, which is the muscles right underneath the shoulder. We wanna make sure that's nice and solid. So for some of us, we may just start here and really just work on our shoulder strength for this, okay? So the next step is to lift the hips off the floor. Okay. We're connected with our breath. Okay. Belly button into the spine. Now, what we're trying to do is push our hips all the way up to the ceiling, creating a little bit of an arch underneath the body, and then also reaching the hips forward. Okay. So as we extend, there's a nice straight line from the shoulders all the way down to the knees. Okay, third option is to come down and up and do a few reps here of lowering and lifting. Slow, under control. This is not about speed, this is about stability and control, okay? So I feel the whole side of my body working. I feel the side of my right hip working, okay? My glutes. Nicely done. Okay, we're gonna rest, transition over to the other side. Left shoulder strong, away from the ear. Press the left elbow down into the floor. Bend the knees. Okay, and then same thing, we lift up, connected to the core. Okay, and imagine, I like to imagine there's a puppet string pulling my hips up to the ceiling. Okay, so the more that you root down into the floor by pressing the elbow and the bottom knee down into the floor, the more you'll be able to lift, right? We're creating a bridge, strong foundation. So we root down to rise up. Okay. And then slowly come on down. Okay. Nicely done. So we're gonna come back. And what I'd like you to do is just go ahead and shoot a message in the chat box how that was for you. Or if you have any questions, I'll just take a moment to pause. And here's the thing, we always want to meet our body wherever we're at. So for some of us, some of these exercises might be really, really challenging. For some of us, they might be easy. You know, so just notice where you're at and adjust and modify as needed. Okay, this is not about pushing yourself to a crazy intensity. Once again, this is more about bringing our body into alignment, strengthening, right? Integrating and strengthening the important muscles of the hips, the core, and the back. So let's see what we got here. Felt my body awakening. Been in winter hibernation, sweaty. All right, strong. They show me I haven't moved in a while and you get weak. Yeah, if you don't use it, you lose it. Okay. So when I started to like really focus on the rehabbing, I basically, you know, I had to go back to the basics. And, you know, when I was younger in my teens, my 20s, I didn't really think I needed to do all these basics all the time. But now these basics are probably the most important part of my practice so that I can go do all the other fun stuff. Okay, I'm glad that felt great for you. Okay, so let's go back to the slide. Okay. So neck posture, okay. Pretty neat picture we have here, right? Of how much weight that the neck carries when we move our head forward. So this part here is going to be really helpful if you're at the computer a lot. I know a lot of us are at the computer a lot for most of the time. Okay, so what we're going to do here is an exercise, okay, for improving our head and neck posture, right? So, and if maybe a show of hands if you want to put in the chat box if you've dealt with neck pain. I know a lot of us have dealt with like neck or shoulder pain. I'd like to show you something that can be really, really helpful here. Okay. And I notice in myself, especially if I'm at the computer a lot, that just by default, like if I'm not really aware of my position, like my head will come forward, and after some time, like I'll feel a pain in my neck, if I'm not aware of my position. Okay. So what we're gonna do is interlace the fingers and put them behind your head. Okay. And we're going to slightly tuck the chin. And by tucking the chin just slightly, we're going to lengthen the back of the neck. Okay. And then we're going to press the head lightly back into the hands. So this is probably about 25 to 50%. We're not doing anything too intense here. Okay. And then we squeeze the shoulder blades back.
Naushad, can you stop sharing the slides so we can see you bigger for the demo?
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's see here. That might help. Okay. And I'm going to show you from the side angle too. Okay. So chin is tucked, back of the head is long, and then we're going to squeeze the shoulder blades back, opening up the elbows. So we're creating a nice stretch through the front of the body. The shoulders are retracting. And we're just going to take a couple of breaths here. And now we're going to start to move the elbows in as we exhale, and then open up the elbows as we inhale. Now, as you do this, notice if the head moves forward and catch yourself, because I do it all the time by mistake. So as the elbows come in, make sure to keep the head pressing back into the hands. Okay, so we'll do this. Let's do maybe 4 or 5 of these, nice and easy. Now, this is an exercise that you can do sitting at your desk, just like we are. You can do it standing. It's a nice little break you can take if you're in between meetings or work at the computer. And it's a nice way just to reset. Okay. Maybe one more here. Okay. And then release the hands. Maybe shake it out, shake out the shoulders, just noticing how your neck feels. And really important for this one, we're just doing it at 25 to 50% of intensity. And that's because what we're not training strength for this, it's more strength endurance. Okay. So strength endurance, we want to make sure we have that endurance of the neck muscles to like maintain a good posture. Okay. Now, the other thing that we're going to do is learn how to strengthen the front of the neck. Right here, your neck flexors are like, they're like the abs of your neck. Okay. So we're going to start in the seated position, just tucking the chin in down towards the sternum. Okay. Keeping the back of the neck long. We'll just do a couple of movements here. So chin tucking down. And as the chin tucks down, imagine a string pulling the head all the way up to the ceiling. Okay. Maybe one more time. Okay. So that's the simple movement. Now we're going to do this lying down on the floor. We're going to use gravity, okay, as a little bit of resistance. I'm just going to check the chat box here real quick. All right, Oh, my brain is 50 pounds at this point. Okay, that's a good one. We're gonna fix that. Okay, so lying back down on the floor, we're gonna do that same chin tuck exercise lying down. Okay. So first step, we're gonna keep the head on the floor, tuck the chin towards the sternum. Okay, and we're gonna hold for about 5 to 10 seconds. Okay, really important for right now that your head is on the floor. And if it's not, maybe put a small pillow underneath your head. But we want the head on the floor right now. Okay, so about 5-10 seconds on, about 5 seconds off. Okay, we'll do 3 of those. So chin tucking down towards the sternum. And then imagine a puppet string pulling your head away from your shoulders. Okay. Good, nicely done. So now we're gonna do the same thing, but start to lift about 25% of your head weight off the floor. So the head is still staying on the floor, but we're gonna start to imagine we're beginning to lift the head off the floor while we do the chin tuck. Okay, just about 25%. So try that a few times. Tucking the chin. Okay. Starting to feel the neck work a little bit more. Okay. And we'll do a couple more rounds here. If you feel comfortable, you can begin to lift more of the head weight off of the floor, but the head still staying very close to the floor. You can imagine the head almost being pulled away from your shoulders. And wherever you're at, we'll do one more round. This time we'll hold for about 10 to 15 seconds. Just notice your breath. Okay. And slowly rolling to your side, coming on up. Noticing how the neck, the head feels. Just going to invite everyone to do a check-in with the body. Feel free to post in the chat how that was for you. Yeah, so I see the comment here. So we're doing sit-ups with our neck. Like in a sense, yes, but it's more of like less of a sit-up and more of like a plank almost, because we're really holding it and stabilizing it versus doing a forward movement. We're stabilizing the neck. So that's kind of the feeling we want. And so yeah, maybe like a show of hands, or you put in the chat box if you like really felt these muscles working here, right in the front of the throat. Okay. That's good to know. Good to know you felt them. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen again. Make sure to go back and forth. Okay. So now we're going to get into some standing and movement exercises. This foundation training, which we're gonna do next, has been really, really pivotal in my overall strength, and specifically strengthening the back of the body. Okay. This movement here is called a hip hinge, where he's hinging back at the hip. So we're going to work on that. And you can see how the back, the picture on the right, is the full founder's pose. There's still that arch in the back. Okay, so we're going to do our best to create and maintain a little bit of an arch to the back. And this is going to strengthen the line from the neck all the way down the spine, the glutes, and then you'll also even potentially feel a stretch in your hamstring. So this is great for the whole back of the body. So oftentimes when we're doing core exercises, we're doing forward movement or sit-ups or crunches or bending forward, we often forget to strengthen the muscles in the back of the body, which are equally important for our overall spinal health. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can see me. That would help. All right, so I'm going to invite everyone to stand up. So feet about shoulder width apart. Okay. Hands on your waist. Okay. The knees are soft, and we're gonna stick our hips back. Okay, so reaching the butt back, but the knees are not bending forwards. That's most important. So let's try this a few times. Just reaching the hips back, keeping the spine straight, and then coming up to standing. Let's do that 2 more times. Hinging back at the hips, weight is on the heels. Maybe you start to feel a stretch in the hamstrings. 1 more time here. And we're gonna stay in this hip hinge position. So butts reaching back. If you look down at your feet, you should be able to see the front of your ankles. Okay. Now we reach the arms behind us, airplane wing arms, squeezing the shoulder blades back. Keeping the neck long, chin tucked, we start to create an arch through the back. Okay. So tailbone is reaching back, crown of the head reaching forward, and create an arch through the back by lifting your chest up, like a slight back bend. Okay. So if you're starting to feel tension in your mid and low back, that's wonderful. Those muscles are working. And then if you feel up for it, option to reach the arms forward. Energy shooting forward from the fingertips. Again, hips reaching back. It's like there's almost this tug of war happening. Weight is on the heels. Making sure you're breathing here. Hips reaching back. Arms reaching forward, creating a slight back bend here. And then we'll slowly let go of the arms. We'll bend into the knees and fold forward. You're going to keep your knees bent here in this forward fold. And then reach down towards the floor. We're going to give a nice stretch for our back and our hamstrings. Just letting go here. You can shift the weight side to side. Okay. So again, bend the knees. If you need to, you can explore straightening the legs a little bit for more of a hamstring stretch. Okay. And then we'll come up halfway, hands resting on the front of the shins. And we'll do a similar thing here, but with our torso parallel to the floor. Okay. So crown of the head shooting forward. Hips shooting back, create a nice arch through the back as much as you can. So also be potentially a nice stretch for your hamstrings, just depending on how loose or tight you are. Okay. Good, and then we're gonna slowly come on up to standing. Maybe just shake it out, wiggle it out. Okay. And again, if you feel that tension through the low back, that's perfectly fine. Okay. There's one other pose that I'm going to show you that's very similar to a Cobra. That's part of the foundation series. Okay. And you are going to lie down on your belly. Okay. And your hands are going to be underneath the shoulders. Okay, keeping the chin tucked. Feet are touching. Okay, so big toes touching. Okay, and the first step is to do a baby cobra. We're gonna press into the floor. So that's step 1 or version 1. And we're doing just a gentle back bend. Okay, making sure the shoulders are away from the ears, chin is tucked. We wanna focus the bend on the mid and the upper back. Okay, so this is I guess, level 1 or version 1, we're using our hands to do a baby back bend. Okay, option 2, if you feel up for it, is to hover the hands off the floor. Okay, and then do the Cobra lift up. Okay, so you have 2 options, just depending on what feels manageable for you. Inhale, back bend, exhale, lower. Inhale, lifting off, exhale, lowering down, maybe do 2 to 3 more here. Whatever seems possible and doable for your body. Making sure you're squeezing the shoulder blades together, bending from the mid and the upper back. And then slowly coming on up. And yeah, feel free to come on back, post in the chat box. Myra, I feel like Superman. I like it. Yeah, we just did also another Superman-like pose there with the Cobra. If you have any questions, if you have any comments how that felt, feel free to put that in the chat box. So once again, that's just a taste in a sense for the foundation training. The first pose we did with the hip hinge standing up is something that I practiced pretty regularly. And yeah, once you start to like actually hold that pose for like 60 seconds, you'll really start to feel the muscles engaging. And sometimes like doing those poses and just holding is more challenging for me than squatting or lifting a ton of weight off the floor. So there's the founder's pose for you. Okay, and then we're going to get into a few other integration and movement exercises. Okay. And so we're taking the principles that we've learned with, you know, connecting into the core, and now it's like, okay, how can we translate that to doing things and strengthening our entire body, right? So we have the basic movements of squatting, hinging, and lunging. These are all kind of lower body bending type of movements. You probably have all done these or know most of these. And so I just wanted to touch on a few key points. With the squat, obviously we have a nice neutral spine. The weight is shifting back into the heels. And then you can see with the knees, we're making sure that they don't cave in. That's really important for our knee health, okay? The hip hinge is something that we just did with the founder's pose. So you can kind of see a picture there. And then lunging is similar to squatting, but it's really helpful for single leg balance and strengthening. And it's a way, it translates really well for things like running and hiking. It's really important to do both single leg strengthening and also squatting. Okay. I'm actually a really big fan of lunges and step ups and that type of strength training, because the benefit of working on lunging is that your spine can be nice and upright. Okay, so I actually prefer to do more, when I do weighted type of strength training, to do more lunges and step ups, because that translates really well to what we do. Okay, so we're gonna cover those. One other thing that we're gonna cover is picking up items from the floor. A way to do that is through the golfer's lift. So if any of you have seen how golfers pick up their ball from the floor or out of the hole, they do this really neat lean, which is, it's a hip hinge, but they're doing it with one leg forward and one leg backwards. Okay, and so we'll cover that. And I highly recommend exploring the golfer's lift if you're picking up something really light from the floor. Like let's say you're picking up a piece of trash or a newspaper or something like that. It's really, really neat. And instead of like rounding our back, or if it's too much for us to squat all the way down, it's just a nice little lean that we can do. So I'm going to cover, so once again, I'm going to cover these, the squat, the lunge. We already did the hip hinge, and then I'm going to cover the golfer's lean. Okay. So let's go back to my screen. Okay, so I'm gonna invite everyone to stand up. I'm pretty sure everyone has done squats before, but we'll just practice a few of these. So feet about shoulder width apart. They could be wider. And I'll just say that here, if it's more comfortable for you to go nice and wide, you can do that. I would turn the toes out slightly. So just finding whatever position works for you. Okay, arms can be reaching in front of you or holding your hands together. Okay, and then we're going to slowly sit back towards the heels. Okay, feeling just a general connection into the core. Okay, and then as you lower, making sure the knees stay more out to the side. Okay, so maybe you come down a quarter, maybe you come down halfway, parallel to the floor, maybe you come even lower. Doing whatever works for you. So we'll do a couple more. So inhale as you come up, exhale, lowering down, and I'll show you from the side as well. Keeping your spine straight, weight shifting back. So exhale, lower. Inhale, lift. Okay, nicely done. Hopefully that feels good. So we did the hinge already. Lunge. We're going to step 1 foot forward, 1 foot backwards. Okay. Make sure you have a little bit of width between your feet so you feel balanced. Okay. I have about 2 to 3 feet in between my legs. If you have longer legs, maybe more of a wider stance. Okay. And then you can lift onto the back toes. Okay, arms can be by your side, spine is nice and straight, connect into your core, and then we'll just slowly bend into both knees. Maybe we come down halfway, maybe we come down all the way to the floor. Okay. If you look at your front knee, make sure that it tracks in line with your toes. We don't want the knee to come in. Okay. And now my knee, it's over the midfoot. That's kind of generally where you want it. It's okay if the knee comes a little bit more forward, but generally speaking, what I like to do is energetically pull the front foot and back foot towards each other. Okay, it's like, so the front foot, the heel is pressing down and almost pulling back into the floor. And that way it's going to engage my glutes and hamstrings. Okay. So we'll switch sides. Other foot forward. Again, spine relatively tall, engaged in the core. We're going to bend down and up. Okay. So you may have done a ton of these before, maybe not. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so now we're going to practice the golfer's lean. I want you to grab maybe something, or imagine you're grabbing something from the floor. Okay, and put it down on the floor in front of you. Okay, we'll practice on both sides, but your front toes, I have my left foot here, is going to be pretty close to the object. Okay, back foot is going to start on the floor. Okay, I'm going to start by hinging forward at the waist. Okay, back is nice and straight. Okay, and then my bottom arm is reaching down towards the floor. I can keep my back leg on the floor, or I can lift it up to pick up. Okay, so as we do this, let's pick it up and put it down a few times. Okay, we're keeping the weight in our hip. Back is straight. We have that connection into the core. And if you want to, you can come down into a lunge. Okay, if that feels more stable for you, you can bend into the knee. Okay, and then let's make sure we practice a few times. Okay, on the other side. Okay, if you want to play around with your balance, you can keep the back foot off the floor, right? Single leg hinge. Back is straight, hinging at the hips. Okay, so the hips are taking most of the weight here. Okay. And we want to make it as simple as possible. Okay, so nicely done. We can come on back. Feel free to let me know how that went for you. If you have any questions, I'll give you a moment to come on back. Okay. And go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Felt good, especially if you wear tight jeans. Okay. I'm glad that, oh well, yeah. I'm a big fan of wearing, when I buy jeans, having jeans that have some sort of stretch in them so I can squat down and lunge or hike if I wanted to. Or just wear flexible sweatpants. Okay. I want to just talk a brief moment about seated posture because we do actually spend a lot of our time sitting. And I wanted to share with you something that I learned. This woman on the right is Esther Gokal, and she developed this whole method for like helping to improve posture and improve back pain. And so I took a course with, I think it was one of her students. So this whole postural alignment thing. And so I wanted to share with you a way that you can change your seated posture. So it's just a little bit easier to keep your shoulders back and your spine aligned. And that's actually starting with a wider leg stance and making sure your pelvis is tilted forward. I briefly talked about that at the very beginning. And so I'm going to demonstrate that for you. Stop my screen share. Okay. So if you have a chair handy, that's great. If you don't, you can practice maybe kind of doing the squat movement. But if you have a chair, I recommend go grabbing one or a couch or something like that. That would be helpful. Let's see. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to put a cushion on my chair, and that's because I have really long legs. Okay. And the reason I'm doing that is we want to make sure the hips are higher than the knees when we're sitting. So if you have an adjustable chair, that's great because you can lift it up to the right height. If you don't, you can put a cushion or just stack something on the seat of your chair. Okay. So we're going to start with a wide leg stance, like a wide squat stance. Okay. Sitting in front of the chair, we're going to lean forward, hinging at the hips, and then hinging and squatting down all the way back until our butt hits the seat, but stay forward. Okay, the hips are forward here, keeping the pelvis forward. We're going to now bring the shoulders back over the hips. Ideally, hips over the knees. We have a nice neutral spine. Okay, there's no real efforting here in the low back. The shoulders are back and down, and just notice how that feels. Okay. Now we're going to mess up our posture by rounding our back, tucking our tailbone, and just noticing how that feels and going back and forth between rocking the hips forward and rocking the hips back. Okay. Now we'll try one thing, rock the hips back and then try to sit upright. You'll notice that requires a lot more effort. Okay, so this happens to me all the time, like my tailbone tucks and I'm sitting up and I'm efforting. So what I do to shift that is I just get up, and I recommend you do this every now and then, get up, hinge forward, sit down, right? So the pelvis is forward, and then bring my body upright, keeping the pelvis forward, okay? So that's what I like to share about the seated posture. We can come on back. Okay. Another thing that I wanted to share in relation to like doing our work and sitting at the desk, some like tactic that I use, I learned from this, his name is Jim Quick. He wrote a book called Limitless, and he uses this system called Pomodoros. And so Pomodoros are 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. And so it's a really neat like tactic or strategy that you can use for your work of like, okay, we can concentrate for about 25 minutes and then you take a break. So I'm a big fan of taking lots of breaks because just the reality is if we're just sitting at the computer for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, we'll just kind of naturally slump, you know, or we'll lose our focus. So this is a really good way to kind of break up your chunks of work. It works really well for me. Also, when I work, actually this desk that I'm on is a standing desk, so it lifts up and down. So I'll sit for a little bit, then I'll stand for 20 minutes, you know, take a break. I really like to consciously take breaks, check in with my body, take a few breaths, see how I'm doing. Okay, so those are some things that I recommend. Question here. Is the ergonomics recommendation of sitting with your legs at least a 90-degree angle wrong? Okay. So I would say at least 90 degrees. 90 degrees is not wrong. I would say what we don't want is where like the knees are really high. We don't want less than 90 degrees. If we have 90 degrees or more, it's even better. So you can actually experiment with like changing the elevation of your hips. You can try 90 degrees, you can try higher and just see how that feels. And then you'll feel what works best for you. The whole like hips above the knees thing can be really, really helpful, especially with people like me, for example, where we've had a tight back or tight hips. It can just make the aligned spine much more just easy, like effortless. And that's what we want. We don't want to be efforting too much when we're sitting and working at the desk, or if we're doing meditation or whatever it is. We want to be alive, but also relaxed. Okay. And then I know we're at 11:30. There's one other series of functional primal movements that I wanted to share with you. We'll take a few minutes. If you have time, that's great. And yes, we did the squatting, the lunging, the hinging. This is if you want to take your exercise and your training to a different level, another level. I'm a huge fan of these primal kind of animal style movements of crawling along the floor, because this starts to really take the basics and the foundations and it really integrates it in a whole new type of movement. So it strengthens the shoulders, it strengthens the hips, it strengthens the core, and it's also good for our coordination. So we have on the left is the bear crawl from the hands and knees position, and then on the right we have a crab walk, okay, which focuses on strengthening more of the back body. Okay, so we'll find with the bear crawl on the left, it's going to be more focused on like the front of the core and the front of the shoulders, and then the crab walk is going to be more of the glutes and then back of the shoulders. So we will come back to the floor. Now, before we do this, if you have any wrist issues, what I'd recommend is doing it on your elbows, okay, or on your fists like that. If you have any kind of pain in the front of your wrist, just go very slow for these exercises. Modify anything, okay, if you need to, really, really important. Okay, starting from hands and knees. Tabletop position, we're going to connect into the core. And the first step, okay, after we've connected in the core, is lift the knees off the floor. So this is our floating tabletop. Knees are about just hovering a couple inches off the floor. Okay, so that's step one. Okay, you'll notice you can go ahead and take a break. Just even after a few seconds of that, you might start to really feel everything working. Okay, Again, go onto your elbows if you need to. Okay. And now we're gonna play around with the bear crawl. So again, lifting the knees off the floor. We're gonna step the right hand forward just a couple inches and then the left foot forward. Okay, keeping the floating tabletop. Left hand, right foot. And as we start to move here, see if you can keep the spine and the whole back nice and flat, like a tabletop. And then maybe experimenting a few steps backward. Again, knees hovering off the floor. And then go ahead and relax. I don't know about that, but even just doing that for 20 seconds, I really feel it. You can feel free if you want on your own to explore with that a little bit more. You can go in different directions. And then we're going to do the reverse. So legs in front of us. I want to show something. If it's too much for your hands, you can just go on your shoulders and do a glute bridge, lifting the hips up. Okay. And then connecting into your core, maybe lifting one foot off the floor at a time. So that's an alternative option if it's too much on your hands. Otherwise, you're going to place your hands behind you, right underneath the shoulders. Turn your hands out to the side. Inhale, lift the hips up. We're going to squeeze the shoulders back, hips up nice and high. And then maybe we start to walk one foot, opposite hand. Okay, these are baby steps. Making sure you have control of the body. You can start to explore maybe going sideways, forwards, backwards. And then going ahead and resting. We're going to come up to standing. We shake out the arms. We're going to take a 30-second shake break, maybe bouncing on the heels a little bit. And this is really helpful to reset the nervous system. Just doing a light bounce on the heels. Shake the shoulders, shake the arms, take a big breath in through the nose. Big exhale through the mouth, ha sound. Okay, and this is really helpful to reset the nervous system, help to reduce stress, which is also really important for the health of our body, the health of our spine. The more that we can reduce stress, release any tension. We'll do one more breath in and out. And just pause. Notice how you feel and then come back. Okay. We will take one more moment here just to take a few deep breaths. You can close the eyes again, finding a posture that works for you, like we've talked about today. And then we'll take a big breath in through the nose, filling up the belly. Exhale, completely letting go. Deep breath into the belly. You can imagine the waves washing over at the shore, back and forth, and through this breath, just as like the water washes back and forth, the breath is washing back and forth internally and just cleansing the whole system, helping you reset, find balance. And just this simple breathing here, deep belly breaths, roughly 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out. Help us to reset, calm the nervous system down. Good, and then slowly coming on back. one last thing that I wanted to share here is this quote from James Clear. True behavior change is identity change, right? So, as we're working on improving our body, our health, our well-being, or we're rehabbing from an injury, that's going to require changes on our part, right? Behavior change. And the key to behavior change is really how we start to think and reflect and use our mindset. And it's how we think about ourselves. We think about who we want to become. So if we want to become someone who has a changed behavior, we have to think about how would that future version of ourselves think? How would that future version of ourselves act? What would they believe about himself or herself? And so just again, coming back to that whole place of awareness, can we start to notice how are we talking about our body? What is our body saying to us? Can we look at things from a lens of gratitude? And how can we really embody and make decisions from the identity and the person that we want to be, So just thought I'd share that with you. That quote has always been really, really meaningful to me. And with that said, I'm going to kind of conclude my sort of presentation here. If any of you would like to put in the chat box any questions or anything that you experienced, any questions from the exercises that we did, or any comments you have, feel free to do so. You can also unmute yourself if you want to speak up. I'm happy to stick around for any questions.
It looks like Yasmin had a question. Is the ergonomics recommendation of sitting with your legs at 90 degrees, a 90-degree angle, wrong?
Yeah, and short answer is no. So yeah, briefly talked about that. There's nothing wrong with 90 degrees. It's just that having a greater angle can be more helpful with the spinal position. It's just that when the knees go higher than the hips, then it starts to kind of squash the low back and round the back a little bit too much. So just be mindful of if the knees are higher than the hips. That's the main thing. And then once you open up the hips even more, it's easier to kind of relax into that seated posture.
Do you teach any weekly classes online for this type of work, or just the meditation Zen Sunday class? What are you doing currently?
Oh yeah. So right now for public classes, I just have the Zen Sundays. I was also, so I was doing, or I am doing a few corporate classes that are more private, that are more like spinal alignment, but it's something that, if I am open to teaching these classes for a group, or if there's any desire for more of these classes, I'm happy. I have a whole spinal care class that I can teach as well.
Cool.
Great question.
Thanks.
How's everyone doing? How was that for you?
I like the tip about keeping the hips higher.
Uh-huh.
I think whenever I become aware of my bad posture, I naturally do that. But now that I know, like, oh yeah, it does help with keeping it straight and not having to work at it, and yeah, I like that you gave us that tip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm glad that was really helpful. Yeah. And the thing is, like, the more that you become aware and you practice these things, then it becomes easier. It's not like a struggle. You're not like forcing yourself into a position because you're like, oh, I'm aware. Oh, I'm even noticing my head's doing that right now. Okay, how can I reset? Can I shift something in my hips? Can I just shift something in my awareness, and it becomes more natural?
And Naushad is going to be putting out a follow-up PDF with a bunch of little video tutorials to help cue you and remind you what we did today. So that will be out within the next 4 weeks. So
yeah, and I'll create a video. Like she said, I'll create a video covering the exercises that we did today.
Thank you so much, Naushad. Thank you so much, Nest crew. We'll be seeing you next month for Magali, which is going to be a nervous system reset after stress or trauma. So we'll be seeing you for that next month, and take super good care. Don't forget to check out the videos on the WellNEST playlist. A lot of them are like 3-4 minutes. Some of them are longer, like 20, but there's plenty on there for just a quick 5-minute break. So take care of your bodies.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks, Naushad. That was awesome.
You're welcome. Nice to see you all.
We'll be in touch.
Bye.
Bye.